Welcome back to the For Real About Real Estate podcast. I am your host, Irvin Beacham, for everybody's favorite realtor. And today, this is part 4 of questions to ask your real estate agent when you are a first-time home buyer. So before we get started, I want to remind you to like, share, and subscribe and hit that bell notification so that you never miss an upload, and listen to this podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. So today's episode is part 4 of this series. And in the previous episodes, we talked about, what did we talk about in the previous episode? We talked about, before you submit an offer. We talked about once you find a home that you're interested in. We talked about conversations that you need to have with your real estate agent before you submit that offer. And we also talked about, that was pretty much it. So now I want to give you a little background before we get started with the questions, the final set of questions. Well, first let me tell you this. These questions are on my website, www.irvinbeacham.realtor. That's irvinbeacham.realtor. And you can download these questions, and basically what you can do is I broke it down by sections. So the first podcast goes with the first section, etc. So when you read the questions, you can understand why you're asking the questions. You're not just going to ask a question, and I don't know why I'm asking this question. Now, if for any reason, which I didn't say in the other podcast, if for any reason these videos aren't explaining clearly to you why you're doing certain things, please feel free to reach out to me at any time, text, email, or call me, and I'll be more than happy to explain to you or your real estate professional why you should ask these questions and what to do, once you ask the questions. So now I'm going to put this out there that I'm not a real estate attorney, so I will never ever give you real estate advice. I'm not real estate advice. I never give you legal advice. I'm gonna give you real estate advice. That's what I'm do. That's what I do for a living. But I'm not going to give you attorney advice. I'm never going to give you legal advice because I am not an attorney. But what I will give you is my best professional answer to whatever your particular question is. So keep that in mind. I will never step on the legal side should you call me with a legal question. Now, with that out of the way, let's get down to the questions. So now, if you have the sheet downloaded in front of you, we're going to be on the part that says, once your offer is accepted. So question 1 is, ask the seller if they have a copy of the survey. Now, this is very important. As a savvy agent, your agent, this is why you have to ask, because every agent doesn't think to do this. A savvy agent can save you whatever the survey costs, because they vary in price, but it's not less than $300. I know that. So your agent, let's just call it $300. Your agent can save you $300 just by asking if the seller has a copy of the survey. Now, depending on the seller, they may or may not have a copy of it. But if they do, I've never had one tell me no, they're not going to give the buyer a copy. It's never happened. So I have had them say they can't find it. You can't do nothing about that. You just got to go in and buy it. But I know one thing for sure. If you don't ask the seller for a copy of the survey, he or she will not give it to you. That is the truth, and that is the reality. So that's why I'm having you have these conversations with your real estate professional, because they may not even know to ask that. When I first started, I didn't know to ask that. I didn't know I could ask the seller for a copy of the survey. So have that conversation with your real estate professional. See if the seller has a copy of the survey, and it could save you some money. Number 2, we kind of touched on this on a previous podcast, but I'll briefly touch on it again. Ask the seller for an extension if you need to do a lab-based paint inspection for homes that were built pre-1978. And again, this is for Florida. If you are anywhere else other than Florida, this may or may not pertain to you. But in Florida, homes built prior to 1978 will have a lead-based paint disclosure attached to it. Like I said in previous podcasts, this is not an inspection that every home inspector does. It's a specialized inspection. It cost my buyer at the time, I think, $450 or $500 to do. I can't remember, but you're gonna have. I mean, that's back then. So who knows what it costs now? And they don't always schedule those like right away, if that makes sense. So you do want to have that conversation with your real estate agent that should you need an extension, you may not need it. This is why we say ask for 15 days if it's that old of a house. You may not need it. So if you don't need it, don't ask for it, don't worry about it. But just know that you can ask for an extension should you decide to do a lead-based paint inspection so that you can get your inspection scheduled in prior to your money going hard. And we talked about that before, so you ought to know. Number 3, ask the home inspector if they will do a 4-point and wind mitigation inspection with the full home inspection. Now, in my experience, some do, some don't. So you want to have that conversation with your home inspector, not the real estate professional. You can ask the real estate professional to ask them, but more times than not, you're going to have the contact information to the home inspector. You're going to be the one paying them and everything, so you don't have to ask your real estate professional this, but you can. But here's the thing: in order to get insurance on the home, you're going to be required to get a 4-point and a wind mitigation inspection. Some home inspectors will do a full home inspection and not do those two things. It's extra. It's extra. Some do. Some include it in their full inspection. This is why you have to have this conversation before you have the home inspector go out and look at the home. You don't want to wait until he sends the report back and then you give it to the lender, and the lender says, well, where's the 4-point and the wind mitigation? And you say, well, I had the home inspection. Yeah, but it doesn't have a wind mid or 4-point. Now you have to call the inspector back, get them rescheduled, and pay extra for it when you could have found out before whether they even include that. And a lot of times they will include it if you ask. But if you don't ask, sometimes they just do the regular home inspection, and then you have to ask for that wind mid and 4-point. Now, really quick, I'm going to tell you what a 4-point inspection is. The 4-point inspection inspects the plumbing, electrical, AC, and the roof. Okay? When they do that inspection, if you get a good report on all 4 of those things, then you can get insurance. If you get a bad report on any of those things, they're not going to want to insure you. So that's something that you got to have it. You got to have it anyway. So go ahead and have that in the inspection. Now, my suggestion is find a inspector that will include it all in one price, in one deal. Don't do it in 2 separate inspections. And that way you can have it all ready to go. Wind mid is how hard the wind can blow on the roof without starting to pull up the tile. And I don't know how that works. I'm not a roofer. I'm not a home inspector. So you would need to ask your home inspector professional exactly what that is and how it works. But I know you can't have insurance without those 2 things. So get those things done by your home inspector in one appointment, if possible. It is possible. Just have that conversation. Number 4, ask the home inspector how soon can they perform the inspection and how long it would take to get the report back. Now, this is important because, like I said, once your contract is accepted, the clock starts ticking. And you want to get that home inspection in front of your real estate professional a minimum of 2 days before the final date your inspection time is up. So, for instance, if your home inspection, if your date is up Friday, you need to have that home inspection in your real estate professional's hands by Wednesday. The reason why you want him to have time, he or she to have time to look it over. You guys have a conversation about the things that you want repaired, that you have a concern about, and it gives them time to get it to the seller and give them time to decide what they want to go, where they want to go from there as far as the repairs go. You don't want to give it to, if your date is Friday, you don't want to give it to them Friday morning. Okay? Can you do it? Sure. But give yourself that space. Give yourself 48 hours of space. This is why you need to know how soon they can perform the inspection. And you need to know how soon can they get it back. They get backed up. From time to time, they get backed up. And you want to know where your home inspection falls in line at. Where's my home? If you do my home inspection tomorrow, how soon can I get my report back? You want to have time to look at it. You want to have time to get it to your agent. You need your agent to have time to get it to the seller or the seller's agent. And then you want to have time to ask them for repairs, because if you're asking for repairs, there's going to be some documentation that needs to be filled out. Your professional is going to do what's called an addendum. In that addendum, you're going to, or a repair request. Some people call it a repair request. So in that repair request addendum, or just a regular addendum, you're going to have what repairs you're wanting the seller to do or give you a credit for. And at that point, they're going to make a decision. So here's the other thing. You need to give your real estate professional permission to share that home inspection report with the seller, should they ask for it. You don't have to, but it looks better and it makes your agent job so much easier. If you ask them, if you tell them, for instance, let's say you say that the home inspector said the roof only got 2 years left. Well, nobody's going to insure you. You could hold on to your inspection and not give it to them because you paid for it. You don't got to give it to them. But if you don't, now they're going to be like, well, how do you know? And is the person a real roofer and all? You know, it's too much. Give your real estate professional the permission to share the report with the seller. Have that conversation before you start. Say, look, these are the repairs I want, and make sure you share the report with them. It makes life so much easier, and without getting into too much detail, just do it. Just trust me and do it. If you have a repair issue, whatever the repair is, it don't have to be a major repair. Whatever the repair issue is, share that report, because most of the time, a good inspector will take pictures, and you'll have pictures of what they're seeing and their recommendations to get it properly repaired. So that's good enough. That's enough for that. Number 5. If anything is wrong with the AC, roof, plumbing, or electrical, will the seller offer a credit or have the repairs done before closing? Now, this is a conversation that you need to have. This probably should have been in the other one before. We kind of touched on it on another podcast. But, you know, just in case you don't, I've had situations where it hasn't come up until after the inspection. The seller said the roof is 1 year old, and they come up there and find they ain't got but 1 year left. So, you want to know if the seller is going to give you a credit or have the repairs done. And like we talked about in the prior podcast, by a licensed professional, and you get the invoice. Do not let Uncle Jack fix your roof or anything else. So that's something that you need to talk to your real estate professional about. Find out how they want to proceed. Some sellers just offer a credit. They ask you to get an estimate, maybe get 2 or 3 estimates, give it to them. They'll pick the one that's lowest more times than not, and they'll give you a credit for that individual to fix your situation, whatever's wrong. All right, number 6. Ask the realtor to give you a breakdown of the transaction with all the relative dates. Now, relevant. Okay, the important dates. Let's just call it that. Now, I do this with every single one of my clients, whether they're a buyer or a seller. I have what's called a transaction timesheet, because once that contract is signed, the clock starts ticking and everything is very time sensitive. Time is of the essence. Time is of the essence. So in order for the home to close like it's supposed to, there are so many things that need to be in place and done by certain dates in order for the transaction to keep moving. Instead of calling my clients or having my clients call me, hey, what's next? Where we at in the transaction? My broker created, I just kind of modified it. My broker created a transaction timesheet which explains all the deadlines. And what I did was I modified it and I put where on the contract you can find those deadlines so that you can refer, because you will have a copy of the executed contract. And you can go to that contract. If you use my transaction timesheet, you can go to the contract and look at the line number. It's going to say line whatever, and you can see the date of when we all agreed, you signed it and you agreed that certain things need to be done. So you're not confused. You can read it for yourself, and you don't have to like ask me where that's at in the contract. You can go you can go to your transaction timesheet and look at it. Now I use it with all of my contacts. Some agents don't use that, but you can ask them to do it. You can say, hey, can you go through the contract and tell me all of the relevant dates that I need to know about as I go through this transaction, so that when we get ready to close on the house, I'm signing documents and getting keys to my house. You can ask them for that. I automatically do it. So if you use me, that's gonna come, but make sure you have that conversation with your real estate professional. Have them to do that. It really helps. It really saves a lot of time, and it's something that I think that it should be mandatory, but just have that conversation. Number 7, ask the realtor if they know how to use DocuSign or something similar. Now this is something that I was really shocked that some agents do not know how to use DocuSign or any of the other electronic signing things. If you have a real estate professional that is not familiar with how to use DocuSign, they're not computer savvy, or they don't know what that is or how to use it, it's called DocuSign, and that's on my sheet. And what you do, tell them to go to Google, go to YouTube, look up how to use DocuSign and use it. It is a time saver. Sometimes you get a lot of addendums depending on the transaction and what's going on. Things need to be signed very quickly. Depending on your schedule, you may or may not be able to run to the office or meet the agent somewhere. You can sign these documents on your smartphone right as you get it. You could be in the grocery store, you could be in a meeting, you could be wherever, and you can click a few buttons and sign a document, and it's legally binding, and you can keep it moving. And rather than trying to meet with the agent and figure out where to meet and all this other stuff, just have them use DocuSign. That's a conversation you may want to have with them as you're thinking about hiring them. Do you know how to use electronic signatures? Ask them. Just say, hey, do you know how to use electronic signatures? If they say no, you may want to choose a different realtor or educate them on how to use it so that it saves you time from running around trying to meet them should you need documents signed. So that is it. But I want to give you a couple things to keep in mind as you getting ready to buy a house for the first time. Some things that I run in. Actually, you know what? This podcast series came from one of my sisters at church. She and I were talking, and she is working with a different realtor. It just goes to show you got to let everybody know you're a realtor. That's another podcast, but she working with another realtor to buy a house, and once she realized I was a realtor, because I got I didn't know you was a realtor. But when she said she expressed to me that the realtor that she's working with is not as knowledgeable. They're brand new. So I offered to help, and I thought about I could probably help a lot more people with this podcast, and having this document where you can download it. But some of the things that her realtor didn't explain to her, and I want to just put it out there right now so that you as a first-time home buyer can know some upfront costs that you will have to pay for as you move forward. Things that's not going to be rolled into a loan that you got to pay for before you buy the home. Number one is a home inspection that we talked about earlier. That's got to be paid up front, obviously, because you're going to get that before you decide to move forward with the offer. That's why you're getting those inspection days. But you have to pay for that up front. Now, do you have to have a home inspection? No. If you don't, you're going to take whatever is wrong with the house. You got to just deal with it. I highly, strongly suggest that you get a home inspection by a professional home inspector. Now, Uncle Jack, the other thing you got to pay for up front is the appraisal. And the other thing we talked about is the survey. Now, you don't have to pay for the survey if your agent can get it from the seller, but just prepare to pay for it, because I'll say 8 times out of 10, they say they don't have it or they can't find it, and you're going to need it. I mean, you got all the way up to close to closing before you actually really need it, but be prepared to pay it. If you don't have to pay it, then you just got the cost. You got the cost already budgeted out, and if you don't, use that $300 for something else. So I just thought I'd say that because the new agent, she probably never sold a house, and she's talking to my sister that talked to me at church, and didn't let her know, and she seemed a little shocked when I told her, hey, yeah, you got upfront costs that you got to pay for, and I kind of share with her what I'm just sharing with you about the prices, and she was like, oh, I didn't know that. And you should know that. As a first-time home buyer, you should know that. The other thing and the last thing I want to talk about really quick is first-time home buyer classes. Sometimes people say it ran out of money and this and that. Don't not ask for it. You just never know. The government is up and down. They're fickle. They're here and there. If you're ready to do it, go ahead and ask if those programs are still available. Here in Hillsborough, we got the Florida Bond Program. I heard that it was off and it's on, it's off and it's on. Look, when you're ready to buy a home, go to your home buyer class. Now here in Tampa, we got the CDC and Salita's house, but wherever you are in the country, there's a home buyer workshop class that you can get a certificate from. Ask those people at the time when you get your certificate what down payment assistance programs are available. Do not go off word on the street. Go off the people who work around it, who know about it. Lots of times your lender will know about it, and don't assume that what you heard even on the news sometime. So that's it. That's it for this podcast. I want to thank you guys for listening to this podcast, and I want to encourage you to like, share, and subscribe. If this podcast can help anybody that you know that's ready to buy a house or thinking about buying a house, if you are in the Tampa Bay area, please consider using me as your real estate agent. If not, find a professional and share this with them so that they can help you buy the house of your dreams, your forever home, with the least amount of problems and in the least amount of time. So I'm Irvin Beacham. I'm everybody's favorite realtor. This is the For Real About Real Estate podcast, and I will see you on the next podcast. Don't forget to download these questions on www.irvinbeacham.com. Again, like, share, and subscribe. Hit the notify button, and I will see you on the next podcast. Thanks for listening.